And I believe naming it is the first step to freeing ourselves from it. Naming the unlived dream is courageous. We can't heal what we don't acknowledge. Pretending we don't care about the dream we bury doesn't make the ache go away. It only makes it stronger. And yet, for so many of us, silence feels safer. We keep that longing tucked away in the corners of our hearts because speaking it out loud feels risky. What if someone laughs? What if they say, you should have done that years ago? What if naming it makes us realize just how much we've lost? But here's the truth, denial doesn't protect us, it just keeps us stuck. When I was doing research on regret and resilience, one of the most consistent themes I saw was this: people could not move forward until they put words to the dream they had abandoned. Sometimes it sounded like, I always wanted to be a teacher. Sometimes it was, I wanted to write a book. Sometimes it was as quiet as, I just wanted to be happy in my own skin. And what struck me was how often people apologized while saying it. They would whisper their dream and then quickly follow it up with, but it's silly, or, it doesn't matter now. That's shame talking. That's the voice that tells us we don't deserve to name what we love because we didn't chase it when we had the chance. But here's what I've learned. Naming the dream doesn't mean you failed. So naming the dream means you're brave enough to tell the truth about your own heart. There's a fascinating piece of research that shows people who openly acknowledge regret, just speak it out loud, experience less emotional distress than those who suppress it. It's as if the very act of naming the unlived dream reduces its power to haunt us. It doesn't erase it, but it changes our relationship with it. Instead of it lurking in the shadows, it becomes part of our story. And when we own our story, even the chapters that don't look the way we wanted them to, we reclaim agency. We stop being defined by the silence of what never happened, and we start being defined by the courage of facing it. That's the real shift. So if you've been carrying an unlived dream, the first step isn't to dust it off and make a plan. The first step is to name it. Say it out loud, write it in a journal, share it with someone you trust. Give it words. Because when you name the dream, you honor the part of you that dared to want it in the first place. And that act alone is a beginning. The weight of regret is heavier than the fear of failure. Fear convinces us that staying safe will protect us, that if we avoid risk, we'll avoid pain. But here's the paradox. The safety we cling to now often becomes the heaviest burden we carry later. And that burden is called regret. When people talk about regret at the end of their lives, it's rarely about the times they tried something and it didn't work out. It's almost always about the moments they didn't try at all. They say things like, I wish I'd had the courage to live true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That regret is harder to carry than any failed attempt because failure gives us something to learn from, but doing nothing, that leaves us with empty hands and unanswered questions. In my research, I've seen over and over that regret linked to inaction is far more enduring than regret linked to action. If you take a risk, fall flat, and fail, yes, it stings, but it eventually becomes a story you tell, a moment of growth, even humor. But when you never take the chance, you don't get a story, you just get silence. In silence, echoes. I think fear plays a clever game with us. It whispers, don't try, you might fail. And we believe it. But what fear doesn't tell us is that choosing not to try is also a choice. And it comes with its own cost. It's just delayed. And that delayed cost shows up in quiet ways. Restlessness, a sense that something is missing, a longing we can't quite put into words. That's regret. And it doesn't show up all at once. It accumulates over time. Here's what's really interesting when we study resilience and well-being. People who take risks, even small ones, report higher life satisfaction than those who consistently play it safe. not because everything they tried worked out, but because they built a life that reflected effort and courage. They knew they tried. That knowledge lightens the load in a way comfort never can. And I'll be honest, failure is uncomfortable. It bruises our ego, it stirs up shame, it can make us feel exposed, but regret is heavier. Regret sits on our shoulders quietly every day with no relief, because we can't change the past. You can recover from failure. You can't redo the moment you never took. So when fear tells you to sit it out, remember this. You're not choosing between safety and risk. You're choosing between the discomfort of trying and the weight of regret. And over a lifetime, regret is always heavier. Permission to grieve and to begin again. We need to give ourselves that permission, and yet most of us don't. We tell ourselves that grief is reserved for death, for obvious losses, the kind that other people can see and recognize. But the truth is, grief is also for the things we hoped for but never lived. It's for the dreams we put down and never picked back up. And because those losses aren't visible to anyone else, we often don't allow ourselves to feel them fully. We minimize them. We say, it's fine, I'm fine, I should just be grateful for what I have. But gratitude and grief can coexist. One doesn't cancel out the other. You can love the life you have and still mourn the life you didn't get to live. That doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you human. In my research, I've seen how powerful it is when people acknowledge that unlived dreams deserve mourning. One woman told me, I thought I was broken because I couldn't stop thinking about the career I never had. But once I let myself grieve it, I finally felt free enough to start something new. That's what grief does. It clears space. It honors the loss so that something else can be born. And here's the hard truth. If we don't let ourselves grieve, the sorrow doesn't go away. It just settles in like sediment at the bottom of a river, quiet but heavy. Over time, it makes everything murkier. We start carrying that heaviness into other parts of our lives, our relationships, our choices, our sense of joy. But when we allow grief, when we name it and feel it, we move that heaviness. We let the river flow again. Beginning again doesn't always mean chasing the exact dream we lost. Sometimes it does, but often it means reclaiming the essence of that dream in a new form. If you always wanted to create, maybe it's not too late to paint or write or build. If you always wanted freedom, maybe it's not too late to make a smaller, braver shift in your life that honors that longing. Grief doesn't have to close the book. Sometimes it simply ends a chapter so another can begin. The most compassionate thing we can do for ourselves is to stop saying it's too late and start asking, what now? Because when we allow grief and then give ourselves permission to begin again, we don't erase the past, but we do open the door to possibility. Connection transforms silent sorrow. Shame grows in silence, and unlived dreams often carry a deep shame. We don't just feel sad that we didn't go after the life we wanted. We also feel embarrassed that we didn't try, or that we tried and failed. We hear these harsh inner voices. You should have done more by now. You wasted your chance. Other people figured it out. Why couldn't you? That's shame talking. And shame thrives in secrecy. The dangerous part is we start believing we're alone in that experience. We assume everyone else out there is living boldly, chasing their dreams without hesitation, while we're the only ones carrying this hidden grief. But when we look closer, when we actually talk to people, we discover that so many of us are quietly holding the same sorrow. And the moment we speak it out loud in a safe space, something shifts. The shame loses its grip. In my research, one of the most profound patterns I've seen is that naming our regrets in the presence of someone who listens without judgment reduces their intensity. Just speaking them, even briefly, makes us feel lighter. One study even showed that sharing regrets out loud lowers stress responses in the body. That's the power of connection. It literally calms our nervous system. Think about it. How many times have you carried something heavy inside you for months or even years, and then when you finally said it out loud to a friend, you felt immediate relief? The situation didn't change, but you did, because connection is the antidote to shame. It reminds us that we're not broken. We're not the only ones. We're human. I think one of the reasons this matters so much with unlived dreams is that we often feel foolish grieving them. We tell ourselves it's too late, no one wants to hear about this. But when we risk being honest with the right people, what we usually get back is recognition. We hear things like, me too, or I've felt that way, or even it's not too late. And that moment of shared humanity helps us carry the grief differently. It turns something isolating into something connecting. Silent sorrow becomes bearable when it's met with compassion, and compassion grows when we are willing to tell the truth. The grief doesn't disappear, but it softens. And in that softening, we find the strength to take the next step. Living brave today reduces tomorrow's quiet grief. The best way to honor the dreams we didn't live is to prevent new ones from piling up. That means choosing courage now, right here, in the small and ordinary moments where fear tells us to play it safe. We often think bravery is reserved for big, dramatic decisions, but most of the time, it's about the everyday choices that shape our lives. Speaking up in a meeting, signing up for the class, saying, I love you, first asking for help, or finally starting the project we've been putting off. When we put off these small acts of courage, we tell ourselves it's just for today. I'll do it when I'm ready. I'll do it when things settle down. I'll do it when I have more time, more confidence, more clarity. But the truth is, waiting is rarely neutral. Waiting slowly stacks up into missed chances, and those missed chances harden into regret. That's how tomorrow's quiet grief is built. One postponed act of courage at a time. In my research, I've seen that people who consistently choose courage, even in small, imperfect ways, report a deeper sense of meaning and resilience. Not because they succeeded every time, but because they built a life that reflected their values rather than their fears. Courage doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees authenticity. And authenticity leaves less room for regret. I think we underestimate how much power we actually have in the present. We can't rewrite the past. We can't go back and live the dreams we abandoned years ago. But today is still pliable. Today gives us the chance to make one brave choice that our future self will thank us for. That choice doesn't have to be monumental. It just has to be honest. One of the things I've learned about regret is that it's not about wishing for a perfect life. It's about wishing we had been braver with the one we had. That's why choosing courage today matters so much. It doesn't just change this moment. It shapes the story we'll tell about our lives later. It replaces I wish I had with I'm glad I tried. Living brave today won't erase the grief of unlived dreams, but it does protect us from adding more. It creates a future that feels less heavy and more whole. And when we look back, we'll see that the moments of courage, however small, were the ones that built a life we don't have to grieve quietly. The truth about the quiet grief of unlived dreams is that it will touch all of us in some way. None of us gets through life without some longing, some regret, some what if that lingers in the back of our minds. But here's the difference between being weighed down by it and being transformed by it. Courage. The courage to name the dream instead of hiding it. The courage to recognize that regret is heavier than failure. The courage to grieve what was lost and still begin again. The courage to speak our sorrow out loud so it can be softened by connection. And the courage to live braver today so that tomorrow doesn't carry the same silence. We don't get to choose every circumstance of our lives, but we do get to choose whether we meet our stories with denial or with honesty. And every time we choose honesty, we reclaim a little piece of our power. Every time we choose connection, we loosen shame's grip. Every time we choose to take even one imperfect step toward a dream, we lighten tomorrow's load. So maybe the question isn't what if I had? Maybe the real question is what now? Because it is never too late to show up for our own lives. It is never too late to name what matters, to take the risk, to open the door, to begin again. And here's what I know for sure. Living bravely doesn't mean living without fear or without regret. It means deciding that the story we write with the days we have left will not be defined by silence. It will be defined by courage, by connection, and by the radical choice to keep showing up. That is how we honor the quiet grief of unlived dreams. Not by letting it define us, but by letting it remind us that we are still here and we still have the chance to live fully, deeply, and bravely.